After much deliberation and thought and prayer regarding sharing the next thing I'm going to share about, I still feel very much convicted that these things happen for a reason. It's not a coincidence. It just cannot be. It's important to reiterate that this is a personal experience, subjective. I'm not expecting anyone to believe me. However, I believe it needs to be shared, and that the person or people it's meant to reach will be reached. And I pray that it is for the Lord's purposes, even though it's very dark. But it was through the darkness, coming through sort of 10 years in what can only be described as the demonic realm, that the Lord turned that all around in a miraculous way. So there are two incidents I'm going to share now. They both happened within a short amount of time of one another. The first thing to say is that, very importantly, when these happened, I had not yet taken any narcotics, no drugs, nothing. I was on high, and both of these events happened during the day. I wasn't looking for them. So the first one is my first, what I call a encounter with beings from another dimension, from the spiritual realm. I'd never had an experience like that before. I'd never seen anything weird. I'd never seen a ghost. I'd never seen a weird thing. Nothing, no out-of-body experiences, nothing had happened to me. I was 32. I think I was 32. And I'd actually wanted something to happen. I hadn't sought anything out. I was very wary of witchcraft and stuff, although I had done a lot of yoga and meditation, which I thought was safe back then. But anyway, I digress. So the first incident is, I'll just describe it. So I had entered into a relationship with a man, and the relationship was dark, and I was starting to hand over myself to him in a very dangerous way. I should also say I don't blame this person. I've completely forgiven him, and I understand what is behind what he does. And I believe he is in a terrible bondage. And although I used to blame him and hate him and point fingers, and I told many people, anyway, I've forgiven him and I pray for him, because we all need salvation, everyone. So he would do this thing where he would hug me. So this was very weird because it wasn't even part of any of the weird stuff we were doing, which was psychologically and physically dangerous. This was not part of that. All it was he hugged me. And so basically what happened the first time, he hugged me and I blacked out. Now, I don't faint. I've never fainted in my life before that. So from his perspective, I blacked out. I subsequently found out, many years later, took me a long time to figure this out, that he was manipulating a archery, I can't remember the names of them, in my neck. You know, you can press it and it blocks the blood flow to your brain. That's what he was doing. And that takes some skill. Not that that's a good thing. So at the time I thought he had superpowers, which was obviously the goal. So I blacked out. But what he didn't know is that from his perspective, I sunk to the floor. But from my perspective, I found myself in another dimension, another place. As I said, I wasn't high, I wasn't drunk. I was a drinker, but it was the middle of the day, and I found myself, it was blacker than black, like not normal black. It was like the void black. And I was on the ground, so I was obviously in the same position that I was in this realm, but I was looking up, and before me were three beings. They were there. It wasn't fuzzy. They were incredibly tall. I have no idea how tall they were. I was on the ground, but they were like way taller than humans. And they were in long, dark robes with hoods, and their faces were the void. There was nothing there. And I was in a state of like almost hypnosis, a kind of enchantment. So my brain kind of was jammed, and I was in awe, and I was looking up. And I remember this, just this, the information I got was that these were ancient beings that have been around since the beginning of time or something like that, that they knew like everything, and that they were, that I had now encountered a sort of a, they had chosen me. It played to my ego. I felt very special. I was in awe, and I desperately wanted to communicate with them, but I couldn't form words and I couldn't form thoughts. I was just in awe, and I didn't understand at that time what was happening, how they did that. I didn't know that they did that to my brain, that paralysis. Anyway, I don't know how long that lasted, but then suddenly, vroom, I was back here, and I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what I was. I didn't know what the world was, what a human was, what a hand was. I didn't know I was me. I didn't know my name. I had no idea. For about 5 minutes, I had no brain. So I was on the ground, and I was looking around. I didn't know my hand was my hand, and I was reaching around and looking. I didn't know I was looking. And gradually it started coming back. Then I recognized this guy's foot and the hem of his jeans. And then gradually it came back. And then as it came back, it hit me. And the first thing I said to him was, send me back, send me back, send me back. Because I was so excited. I was so excited. Now in retrospect, I don't quite know why I was excited, except that they had enchanted me. Because when I reflect on it, you know, their faces were the void. Not a good thing. I mean, who knows, right? At that time, I didn't care. I was so overwhelmed with the impression I had from them. That was addictive and played, as I said, to my ego and made me feel like I'd reached a higher level and they had somehow chosen me. He didn't know. He didn't understand what had happened. I now understand that these are the entities that were sort of behind him as well. Whether or not he knew that, I don't know. Whether or not he'd met them before, I don't know. Anyway, now, if it was a one-off, I'd say sure, okay, crazy moment. But this happened like 20 more times. It happened repeatedly. Every time he hugged me, then this would happen. I was addicted. I could never communicate with them. I was just there they were. It was totally awesome. I was so excited. It even happened once in a public place, in a photography studio, in the dressing room. So there were, it wasn't during some weird ritual or something. This happened in normality, so to speak. But it's interesting that this happened when I started that relationship with him, which was very, very dark. And there were certain practices he was familiar with in terms of this kind of fetish relationship we were in that I was not. So he had been practicing this for a while, and I am now convinced that these beings were behind his quote unquote skills and ability to be very sort of addictive and mysterious. Anyway, so it happened many, many times while I was with him. It didn't cross my mind until 2 years ago that maybe these beings did not have my best interests at heart. Anyway, I just can't categorize that as a hallucination. There's nothing in me that I have tried to go, okay, I imagined it, I made it up, but it's happened so many times and it was exactly the same every time. And it was like totally physical for me, like there. And there was no variation. It was exactly the same. There was no reason why this would suddenly happen. That would be hallucinatory or whatever. Anyway. So then shortly after that happened the first time, let me think. It's hard to put a timeline on this because lots of things started happening. It might have happened a few times, and then this next thing happened. So as this was going on, I was giving myself more and more psychologically, mentally, I didn't understand, but also spiritually, over to this man's desires, and I would do anything he said. So I now see that I was really handing myself over to the spiritual realm, not to him. But he was enchanted as well. So he believed that he had these superpowers. And so did I. I was hooked. So then, this is a bit not so easy to talk about. Then there was a day, again, during the day, bright daylight, sun shining. The room was bright. The sun would stream in the room, so the walls were white, everything was white. I could see everything perfectly clearly. So basically, he was on a sofa, and I was standing about 3 meters away from him. And in between us was a coffee table with his computer. And I was in my ballet gear, in my pointe shoes, and he was training me. We did weird things, okay? And so I was sort of handing myself over to him as this fantasy ballet master, but obviously really what, right? So on this day, I was not doing what he wanted and he was getting annoyed, and I actually really enjoyed that. So it was this messed up game. And I was doing these pirouettes where you spin on your toe, and I was falling over, and he was getting more and more annoyed. And then at one point, what happened was he picked up a full bottle of water, like a small one, and he threw it at me, and it whizzed past my face, past my eye like that, and then it fell on the floor. And I realized that if it had hit my eye, it would have taken my eye out. So I was just filled with this anger, and I bent down and I picked it up and I threw it back at him without thinking. And as I did this, as I let it go, I knew I was dead. I can't describe it. I knew. Before it hit the wall behind his head. So it flew across the room. He moved his head. It hit the wall. And then I looked at him and I knew I was dead. And I watched his eyes go black. I've spent a lot of time checking myself to see if I made that up. But I know what I saw. And his eyes went black. The whites went black. The brown went black. He was only 3 meters away and the sun was streaming in the room. As this happened, my blood went cold. It was like it turned to frozen mercury. And time sort of went like this. And it just slowed down, you know, like in the Matrix, but for real. So the next 10 seconds took forever. And I watched him stand up. And as he stood up, very, very slowly from my perspective, he started to become something else. I didn't see it visually, but I saw it somehow with my being. I've never experienced anything like this before or since. This is the only time ever. And as he stood up, this being entered the room, and he was huge, and I shrank and shrank. I felt like I was nothing, and I knew I was dead. And he stood before me, and everything just stopped. So there was the man, but there was all this other, and the air was filled with this viscous hate and evil, powerful spiritual force. I've never, ever, and I mean, I'm just telling you what happened. I don't expect you to believe me, but I'm telling you that when he stood up and this filled the room, I knew I was in the presence of Satan. I knew it. There was no doubt. That was the only thought that went through my mind. This is Satan. And the other thought was, I am dead. That was it. Couldn't think anything else. I was frozen. I couldn't move. So even though the door was just over there was actually no option because I was physically frozen in place. I felt like a piece of grass, like nothing. And I knew I was in the presence of Satan, and I knew this was the Satan from the Bible, Ha-Satan, the Satan. Even though at that time I was not a believer, I didn't read the Bible, I didn't believe in Jesus, I didn't believe in God. But in this moment, I believed in Satan. And I knew he was real, which is interesting because I didn't make the logical steps then that if this is the biblical Satan, maybe the rest of the things in the Bible are worth considering, Sarah. But anyway, I was not in a frame of mind for the truth. And then he came towards me, however many steps it took, 3, 4, and he came and it was incredibly slow. And as he came toward me, I started to, for the first time in my life, come out of my body. Praise the Lord, I came out of my body because I couldn't feel what happened to me next. I didn't feel it. He hit me. It was in slow motion. And as his hand hit me, I didn't feel it because I was now I wasn't floating, but I was not connected to my body. So it was like I was watching myself slightly separated. Total madness. Not on drugs, must say that again, not high, middle of the day, not even drunk. I may have had like 2 drinks. Came out of my body, and as he hit me, my body lifted off the ground and it flew, I don't know how far because it wasn't a massive room. I hit the carpet and I skidded on the carpet and it ripped the skin off my face, off my shoulder, off my hip, off my leg, like ripped because I had a tutu on. So, I know, right? The force of that one impact was superhuman. It was superhuman. And I didn't feel myself hit the ground, thank the Lord. And then he was on top of me, and I don't know what happened, but he was somehow all the way around me. And he had his hands around my neck, and the world was disappearing. And I was going unconscious. And I knew I was dead. I I couldn't think anything else. I knew this was Satan, and I knew I was dead. I couldn't fight. I was like a piece of grass. There was nothing. It was like I didn't have life in me. And this force was, this visceral hate and evil, and I can't describe it. Anyway, so superhuman. I was going fast. It wasn't slow, it was fast. Even though slow motion for me, but it was just like, it was over. And then right at the last second, when this blackness was nearly closed, he dropped me. And as he dropped me, and I hit the ground, and the blood was out of my nose, my jaw was dislocated, my nose was broken, my lip was split, my eye was going black, my face was swollen, there were these marks around my neck. Hit the ground, and this entity left. So the evil and the hate and the fullness of the room was suddenly gone, and it was empty again, and all was left was this man, and he stood up and went to sit on the sofa. And I was on the ground, looking at the blood in the carpet. I couldn't think. So anyway, he then said, go to the bathroom and clean yourself up. So I went to the bathroom and I saw my face. It took weeks for the fingerprints to come off my neck. But then, and this is what happened. This is when, now I understand that this is when I made a spiritual contract with the spiritual darkness. Because I looked in the mirror at myself and I said, you're not leaving, are you? I look back at that in absolute amazement. What possessed me? That is the question. And I turned around, I went back into the room, and he said, get out. It's not like, I should have left. You would think, right? But anyway, let's just say I hadn't quite plumbed the depths of my own wickedness yet. And I said, no. And he said, why not? And I said, oh, there's nothing out there for me. And I did not leave. And that was my choice. And when you really consider what I had just encountered, and that I stayed, and obviously things went crazy after that. It's not rocket science, right? But in years to come, it still would not cross my mind. Oh, okay, wait. Shortly after that, I started taking drugs, and I do not think that's a coincidence. I believe that it was all connected. I was never gonna take drugs, and shortly after these events and me meeting these entities many other times, I did not link these two. I did not link meeting Satan with these entities. I didn't make that connection. I thought they were good and had my best interests at heart. I did not make that connection until 2 years ago, when a number of events happened and I started reading the Bible, and I came to see what I had been rescued from. Now, only a few years ago did it start to cross my mind, and I thought, I wonder why that evil let me go. I call it Satan. I believe it was Satan. Why did it let me go? Why did I never think of that? Did I think it was me? Did I think it was just... Why would it let me go? It had me, and it clearly wanted to kill me, and then at the last moment it stopped. I know the answer now. Because all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to Jesus Christ. And he stopped him. Because the Lord has a plan. He has a plan. And look, I went through certain things, and I have not been sharing them because they're dark, they're controversial, they're probably offensive, but I'm sharing them. I'm sharing them, and this is one of them. And I'm going to share more. I cannot believe that these things are coincidences. And when I read the Bible, I started to understand the experiences I'd had and the spiritual realm and how enchanted I was and how they pandered to my ego and how they made me feel enlightened. And they have lots of different outfits. Lots of different outfits. And I did not understand that we are so easily manipulated and enchanted. But praise the Lord, because Jesus rescued me, and there's a lot more to tell. And my prayer is that this will make you start to think, start to consider. And perhaps there will be people out there who know what I'm talking about, who've had experiences and think that it's cool and think that it's liberation and think that it's enlightenment and think that it's, and of course you will. Everyone does. Satan is a liar and the father of lies. That's what Jesus said. And he will not normally present himself to you or the other forces of darkness, demons, fallen angels. They will not present themselves to you as scary and unappealing. They want to seduce you. They want to trick you. They will do anything without shame or morality, anything to keep you from the truth of who Jesus is and what he has done, and that he is the only way. And that if you think you're free, without Jesus, you're in bondage. Yeah. So my prayer is that this will start a process in people. It's not my process, it's the Lord's process in you. And I pray that you will look at the scriptures, read the Gospels, start to ask for the truth, no matter what. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through him. He died for your sins. And on the cross, he conquered all these forces of darkness and evil. He conquered them. It is finished. But we must turn to him. He rose again on the third day in the flesh. He conquered death. He conquered Satan. He conquered hell. He conquered sin. It is done. It is finished. And all he asks is that we turn to him. And he will show us the truth. He said, if you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples. And you will know the truth. And the truth will set you free. That's what happened. I read the Bible. The Lord opened my eyes. And I am free from drugs. I'm free from demonic oppression. I'm free from demonic possession. I'm free from despair and suicidal thoughts and planning. I'm free from self-destruction and destroying others. And I'm free from the lack of understanding of what this universe is about and why we are here and who made us and what for. We were made for the glory of God. We were made in his image and we have been robbed of that. So that's my prayer. And there will be more.